to my channel, Simone here. So today I'm going to be filming the Grishaverse book tag. I was tagged by Kaz over at Cats and Camera, whose channel I love, and I'll link her below. Please go and check her channel out. She's incredible. I absolutely adore her videos and I really like her, so yeah, go over there. And this is basically based obviously on the Grishaverse, which if you don't know what that is, it encompasses, I believe, Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and then the Shadow and Bone trilogy. So Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, Ruin and Rising. Maybe not in that order, I can't remember. I've read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, the duology, and I've also read Shadow and Bone, the first book in that trilogy. So I feel like I've read, what, 60% of those 5? And I really enjoyed all 3 of the ones I've read. So I very much enjoy Leigh Bardugo's writing, and I'm looking forward to continuing on with that series because I think it'll be great. But yeah, I'm glad I was tagged in this video because I have a lot of answers to these questions. So there's 10 questions and then I'm going to tag people at the end. So the first question is for Kaz Brekker, and this is a book that you shouldn't judge by its cover. And my answer for this one is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. I adore this book. It's my favourite Stephen King book by far. I gave this definitely a 5 out of 5 stars, but I think the cover doesn't really do it justice, or at least the cover I had when I read. I'll put the cover up that I've got, or not got, that I had when I read it because I got it from the library. And I don't feel like, if I looked at that cover, it's not one I would particularly be excited to pick up. It wouldn't be something that would really jump out at me. But because I know it was Stephen King and I wanted to read it, it was fantastic. It's basically a kind of time travel concept novel where the main character goes back in time and basically tries to stop the assassination of JFK. It follows him tracking the people responsible up until the point when it happens, and he obviously tries to do certain things to make those things not happen, and it's really interesting, very fascinating. And hey, I can answer a trivia question now of what date JFK died, so that's a good thing. I learnt a lot about JFK's assassination and kind of the things building up to it and everything like that, so yeah, it was really interesting and I adored it. Question number 2 is Nina Zenik, and this is a book that made you feel empowered. And I'm afraid for this one I'm going to be kind of rolling out an old favourite, and you've definitely heard me talk about this book before. This is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is my favourite classic of all time, which firstly makes me feel empowered because I think to myself, like, Charlotte Bronte as an author wrote this, like, what, 100... God, I don't even know when it was written, that's ridiculous. Like, 150 years ago? Nearly 200 years ago? I don't even know. Like, 150 years ago, say. And it's still here. She did such an amazing job. She's an amazing author, and I think that is empowering in itself. However, the other thing that is empowering about this is Jane Eyre herself. She does not take... She's been treated very badly in the past, and that could have turned her into a certain type of person. She might have changed. She could have become basically a horrible person. She could have just turned into a product of her environment, and she doesn't do that at all. In fact, she has this strength in her that just makes me feel like I can't even explain. I actually adore this woman. I feel like I'd love to be like friends with her. I feel like she says what she thinks, but she's not horrible about it. Like, she's quite straightforward, but I don't feel like she goes out of her way to be horrible or like to upset people, which I think is like a really good skill. Question number 4 is for Inej Ghafa, and this is a book with a great balance of character and plot. And for this one I've picked Winners by Danielle Steele, which I believe I read in 2016. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know I read it within the last few years, and it basically follows a young girl, I think she's about 17, is that right? About something like that. And she's basically a Olympic skier. So she, well, she's going to go to the Olympics. She's such a good skier and she's kind of on track to become an Olympic skier, that was it. And then she lives with her father because her mother passed away a few years before, and her and her dad get on really well, and he supports her. And then all of a sudden, one day, there is a skiing accident and her instructor is killed and she is essentially paralysed from the waist down. And it's about her and her father's struggle to come to terms with what's happened, and then them trying to do something about it and help other people in the same situation. I don't want to go into too much more because I will end up spoiling it, but this book was absolutely phenomenal. I think this is a great balance between character and plot, because obviously the plot is the fact that she then is trying to get on with things. She goes to rehab to try and work out what she can do. She then, obviously other things happen and her father gets involved, and so the plot is very heavy, but I think the characters are the best part. I feel like you really get to know not only the young girl, you get to know her father, you get to know her doctor, and you get to know them on quite a personal level, and I absolutely love that. I think it was really, really well written. I've always said Danielle Steele is like a fantastic writer, and I don't think this was an exception. Question number 4 is Alina Starkov, and this is a book that is unique and completely unique to anything else you've ever read, and for me I'm going to pick one that's a little bit strange one to say, and that is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Now I know that this isn't particularly unique now, but firstly when I read it, it was the first type of book of this kind that I'd ever read, and also when it was written, I think this was a book that wasn't really ever, this type of book wasn't ever really written before this. I feel like it was a really unique concept. I do think people have used it from then. But basically, if you don't know what this is, To Kill a Mockingbird is a story about two young children, Jem and Scout, and their father Atticus Finch, who is a lawyer representing a black man accused of murdering 2 white men who raped his daughter. And it's set in the 50s, and it's set around a time where black people didn't have the same rights that white people did. There was definitely a prejudice there, and also the community as a whole had a real disdain for Atticus because he was, you know, because they were like, well, this guy's guilty, I don't, like, how can you think anything else? And they had they really judged him for it, and I think he kind of thought like the guy deserved to be defended, and nobody else could see that. And I think Atticus Finch did what was right, whereas everybody else did what they thought was morally and socially acceptable, which obviously, I mean, there's grey areas. And I feel like this was one of the first of its kind. That's why I'm saying it's unique. I think it definitely was when it was written, and also it was the first book I read of that type before. I would say though, don't bother reading the second book, go Set a Watchman, because it was terrible. Question number 5 is for Mal Oretzev, and this is a book that always sticks with you, and for this one I've picked The Missing by C.L. Taylor because it's terrifying. It terrifies me how like little things can lead to a bigger thing. Now obviously I can't really go into this because I will spoil it, but basically this follows a family, the mother especially, whose son has gone missing, and it's been a year since he went missing. There's been no leads, and then they decide to do like an anniversary appeal, and something starts to happen, and the mother starts to try and investigate a little bit herself as well. Now obviously I'm not going to go into what happened because it would just spoil the fact that it's a thriller. It's an amazing book, I definitely would recommend. And I think that when you read it you'll realise that it's not something that has never happened to any of us. Like, I feel like the things that happen that lead up to this book we've all been through, and it can come out of nowhere, and I feel like it's one of those things where it makes me think about the things that I do every day, and the way that I talk to people, and how I sort of react and how I interact, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think this was terrifying for that exact reason, but I really did enjoy it. Question number 6 is The Darkling. This is a book with a dark plot or storyline, and for me I've picked Soundless by Rochelle Mead. I know this is a very controversial book, some people love it, some people hate it. I personally loved it, and for me this is a dark plot because it basically follows a village up a mountain who essentially can't get food themselves because there's no way of them to get down the mountain. So there's like a pulley system where they send food down. They send like ore and minerals and things from the mountain, like diamonds and stuff, down to the town at the bottom, who then send them food. And the idea of relying on other people for food, like, and a pulley system, like, who knows what could happen? That could break. Or like in this, the town stops sending them food at some points, or send them less food, and I think like how terrifying that is, to be completely reliant on somebody else. So yeah, for me this was a dark plot because it wasn't like overly dark. That makes it like it didn't like shove you in the face with how dark it was. Question number 7 is Jesper Fahey, and this is a book that always seems to get left out. And I've picked a really interesting one for this that I've not had anybody talk about, and this is One Born Every Minute, Real Stories from the Delivery Room by Maria Dorr. I know a lot of people love the TV show One Born Every Minute, which is like a well, it's like a documentary type thing, but it's stories of people's birth stories and their deliveries and things that happen and the actual giving birth part. But I have never heard anyone who's read the book. I thought the book was fantastic. I read about stories that I don't think are on the TV show. I think it's different stories, I'm sure it is. I've not seen all of the TV show, so I'm not 100% sure. But Maria Dor is a midwife who has written this book. But yeah, I've never heard anyone talk about reading the book One Born Every Minute, but I would definitely recommend if you like the TV show. Question number 8 is Wylan Van Eck, and this is a book that wasn't what it seemed at first. And for me, I've picked 1984 by George Orwell because at first I thought I liked it and then I didn't, so awkward. I should just say though, that doesn't mean I don't like Wylan. I think he's a great character. In fact, I do enjoy him quite a lot. Question number 9 is my favourite. Matthias Helvar. And this is a book that was bad at first but turned out to be good. And for me, I've gone with It's Not Summer Without You by Jenny Han. This is more to do with the series. I read the first book, The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han, and I didn't dislike it, but I found the message to be quite damaging. I thought the whole thing about basically she is deemed pretty because she's just gone through puberty and she turns like 14 or something. I can't remember if it's 14, I might have made that up. But she sort of turns like 13, 14, goes through puberty, and suddenly the boys really like her. And I just didn't like that personally. I found that to be really uncomfortable and an uncomfortable message, so that was why it started out bad. But I read the second book anyway because I thought actually it's quite an easy read and I don't mind. I really would like to continue with the series because a lot of people love it. And I read It's Not Summer Without You, where obviously it's moved on a bit, and I felt like this one was really about grief, and it was about something happened in the first book, I won't say what, or the end of the first. I think it happened kind of between the first and the second book really, and it's about grief and it's about honesty and it's about trusting each other, and I felt like it was much better than the first one. I thought the messages were much better. Obviously she'd gone past puberty at this point, so it wasn't about that at all. I loved it, I thought it was incredible, and yeah, I think the second book was much stronger than the first, and so I feel like it turned out good. And I haven't read the third one yet, which I think is the final one, but hopefully it'll get even better. And then the final question, number 10, is Nikolai Lantsov, and this is a witty book, and for me I've picked The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot. I love Meg Cabot's writing. I think she's absolutely incredible, and I love The Princess Diaries because it seems very unrealistic, but I kind of love that. And also Mia Thermopolis, the main character, is literally hilarious. This follows a girl who basically is kind of a normal girl. In fact, she's quite like average, I would say. She doesn't really, nobody really knows her at school. She's not popular in any way. And she suddenly finds out that she's the princess of Genovia, which is a small country that she didn't even know about before, and that her father's actually the crown prince and she didn't realise. And she then has to have like princess lessons and stuff to find out, you know, to figure out who she really is and stuff. And I think the whole thing is hilarious. And I think it's like a 13-part series or something. I know I've seen the film The Princess Diaries, which was great, and I think there was a second one that came out with Julie Andrews as the Grand-Mère, and I think she's amazing. So yeah, I would definitely recommend. I think it will make you laugh. So now we're on to the people that I tag. I've tagged 5 people in this. I have checked everybody's channel, and they've all mentioned that they've read at least 6 of Crows, I believe. I'm not sure about the rest. Although, to be honest, you probably don't even need to have read any of these books to be able to answer these questions, but obviously it helps. I've also checked to make sure that none of you have done this before. I don't think you have. I couldn't find that you'd done it before, so hopefully, yeah, you'll enjoy doing this. So I'm going to tag Read with Cindy, Mel Moriarty, Looking for Shaq, Yanis Reads, and The Bookish Ginger. So all 5 of you, I really hope you do this video. I'm looking forward to seeing your answers. I upload every Monday and Friday at 5 PM, so please come back and subscribe to my channel if you want to be notified whenever I do upload. Give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys!